I used to think the scariest sound in a house was creaking floorboard at night. I was wrong. The scariest sound is silence, the kind that hits you after a lie unravels. The silence in my own home, right after I opened the storage room, was deafening. And in that moment, I realized something had been happening right under my nose for months. Subscribe to my channel to stay updated with future content. Enjoy the rest of the video, and feel free to share where you're watching from. When my husband told me his parents needed a place to stay just for a week, I didn't hesitate. We'd been married for 3 years. His family had always seemed kind, if a little overbearing. His mother was the kind of woman who folded your laundry before you finished it, and his dad liked to talk endlessly about retirement plans he had no intention of following through on. Still, it was only a week. They were between selling their old house and moving into a condo that wasn't quite ready yet. 1 week, tops, my husband promised. They'll keep to themselves. They arrived on a rainy Sunday. I remember that because they tracked mud all over the hallway rug, and his mother said, "Don't worry, I'll clean it," but never did. The first few days were manageable, though odd. His mom immediately took over the kitchen. She rearranged everything, moved my spices, threw out my brand of coffee, stocked the fridge with things I didn't recognize. Every meal felt like a performance. She insisted on cooking for everyone, even if I said I'd already planned dinner. His dad took over the TV room. He wasn't watching anything in particular, just clicking through channels constantly, volume cranked high enough to shake the windows. When I asked if he could turn it down while I worked from home, he laughed and said, "You young people and your quiet hours." Still, I kept reminding myself, it's temporary, just a week. But 1 week turned into 2. When I gently asked my husband what was going on with the condo, he shrugged and mumbled something about a plumbing issue. I was annoyed, but I let it go. I didn't want to cause tension. I figured if we all gave each other space, it would blow over. Except they didn't give me space. They started doing strange things, subtle but invasive. One morning, I came downstairs to find my planner open on the kitchen table. Appointments and reminders I hadn't told anyone about were suddenly being considered by my mother-in-law, who casually mentioned that maybe I should skip my haircut because money's tight now with extra people. They also began storing things. A few boxes at first, just for a couple days until the movers come. They stacked them in corners, under tables, behind the couch. I asked my husband to talk to them about it, and he said, "They're stressed. Let them settle. It's not forever." By week 3, our house didn't feel like mine anymore. It smelled different. It sounded different. And worst of all, I felt like a guest in my own bedroom. But what really started to unnerve me was the way they treated the storage room. It was a small, unused room in the back of the house. We mostly kept winter gear and empty suitcases there. But ever since his parents moved in, they kept it locked. Yes, locked. I only noticed because one morning I went to grab my snow boots and found a padlock on the door. Not a cheap one either. One of those heavy-duty ones with a thick shackle and keyhole. It hadn't been there the day before. When I asked about it, his dad smiled like it was no big deal. "Oh, we just needed a safe spot for a few important things. Don't worry, we'll move it soon." And just like that, the conversation ended. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, very off. It wasn't just clutter anymore. It was secrecy, possessiveness, control, and it was about to get much worse. The next morning, I waited until the house was quiet. My husband had taken his dad out to run errands, and his mom was in the garden, pruning flowers that weren't even hers. I slipped down the hallway toward the storage room, my steps light on the hardwood floor. The padlock was still there, heavy, cold to the touch. I tried turning the doorknob out of instinct, locked tight. I stood there a moment, listening. Nothing. But something had changed. There was a faint smell coming from underneath the door. Not strong, subtle, like a mix of mothballs and something faintly metallic. I crouched and peered through the crack at the bottom, but all I saw was darkness. That evening, I brought it up again, this time with more force. "I want to know what's in the storage room," I said to my husband. He blinked at me like I'd asked why the sky was blue. "What's the big deal?" he said. "It's just a few personal items. They'll be gone soon." "You keep saying that," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But it's been 3 weeks. They locked a room in our house. Don't you think that's strange?" He rubbed his temples and sighed. "Look, it's important to them. Sentimental stuff. I'm not getting in the middle of it." I stared at him. The man I married had always been reasonable, mild-mannered, thoughtful, but lately there was a distance in his eyes, like he was keeping something from me too. That night I couldn't sleep. Again. I sat in the kitchen at 2 a.m. drinking tea, trying to make sense of the situation. That's when I heard it. A soft thud, then another. It was coming from the hallway, from the storage room. I tiptoed to the door and pressed my ear against it. Silence, then scraping. A slow drag, like something being moved across the floor. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked again, louder. "Hello?" I whispered. Silence. Then footsteps. Light. Too light to be either of his parents. I backed away, heart pounding. My skin crawled as I returned to bed, pretending to sleep when my husband came back in an hour later smelling like cigarette smoke. He doesn't smoke. The next morning, the hallway was empty again, the padlock still in place. By now, the house felt like a prison with open doors. Every conversation with his parents was laced with fake smiles and side glances. His mom started calling me sweetheart, in a syrupy voice that made my teeth ache. His dad avoided me completely. And then came the packages. Brown cardboard boxes, arriving every couple of days. Always addressed to his father. Always the same sender. Some unknown name I didn't recognize. He'd take them straight into the storage room. I asked my husband about it. "Just stuff he's shipping ahead for the condo," he said without looking up from his phone. "But they're still here," I said, my voice rising despite myself. "And the condo isn't even ready. Do you even know if it exists?" He finally looked at me then, and for a split second, I saw something flicker across his face. Regret? Fear? I couldn't tell, but he didn't answer. That's when I made the decision. I would find a way into that room. I didn't care what was inside: sentimental keepsakes, priceless antiques, illegal imports. I had to know. Because something was rotting at the core of this house, not physically, not yet, but emotionally, mentally, something was wrong, and I was the only one still pretending things were normal. I couldn't do it any longer. I waited until Thursday. I knew my husband had a late meeting, and his parents had started taking long evening walks to stretch their legs. That gave me a window. Small, but enough. I'd already planned it all. Earlier that week, I slipped into the garage and found our old bolt cutters buried under a pile of garden tools. I cleaned them off and hid them under the sink, behind the cleaning products I knew no one touched but me. Now, with the house quiet and shadows stretching long across the walls, I moved. I took the bolt cutters, walked down the hall, and stood in front of the locked storage room. My hands were shaking. I told myself it was just nerves. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. I knew I was about to see something I wouldn't be able to forget. The metal bit into the lock with a loud snap. It fell to the floor with a hollow clatter that seemed louder than it should have been. I waited a moment, listening. Still silence. I turned the knob slowly. The door creaked open. At first, all I saw were boxes. Floor to ceiling, dozens of them, stacked neatly, labeled in block handwriting: kitchenware, clothes, tools. But something was off. I stepped inside and the smell hit me harder this time. Musty, metallic, and something else. Sweet. Like old fruit that had been left out too long. I reached for the light switch. Nothing. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing narrow paths between box towers. The air felt heavier in here, like the room was holding its breath. I began moving through the narrow maze. The first boxes were exactly what they claimed: old pots, sweaters, mismatched shoes. But as I dug deeper, the labels stopped matching the contents. One box labeled books was filled with what looked like used medical supplies: syringes, gauze, pill bottles with someone else's name on them. Another box marked linens held folders, documents, photos, papers with official seals. I flipped one open. It was a birth certificate. Then another. Then a third. All for people I didn't know. A cold sweat spread down my back. I moved to the far corner of the room, where a thick curtain had been nailed across the wall, covering something. I hesitated. My phone light flickered. I pulled the curtain aside. Behind it there was a small door, short, barely 3 feet tall, like a crawl space. My heart slammed in my chest. I reached for the handle. It was unlocked. I opened it slowly. Inside was a tiny, windowless chamber. The walls were lined with thick foam, soundproofing. A bare light bulb dangled from the ceiling. There was a mattress on the floor, rumpled. A water bottle, a plastic tray with crumbs, a folded blanket. I staggered back, nearly dropping my phone. This wasn't storage. It was a room. Someone had been staying here, recently. That's when I heard the sound behind me, a floorboard creaking. I spun around. My mother-in-law was standing at the door, face pale, hands trembling slightly. "What are you doing in here?" she asked quietly. But her tone wasn't angry. It wasn't even surprised. It was tired, like she'd been waiting for this. I couldn't speak. My mouth was dry. She stepped inside, closed the door behind her gently, and said, "You shouldn't have opened that." And just like that, the mask slipped. She didn't yell. She didn't grab me or slam the door. She just stood there with her back to the wall of boxes, watching me like someone watches a dog that might bite. "I asked you not to go in here," she said again, "but I knew you would, eventually. I wanted to speak, demand answers, scream even, but I couldn't." My eyes kept darting to the small crawl space behind me. That bed, those crumbs, someone had been there, someone who wasn't supposed to be. "Who was staying in that room?" I finally asked, my voice sounding small and far away. Her face twitched, just slightly, a shadow of something, guilt, maybe, or grief. "My brother," she said. I blinked. "Your what?" "He got out a few months ago. He's not well, and we had nowhere else to take him." "Got out of where?" Her lips pressed together. Then, almost in a whisper, "He was institutionalized. Long-term, since his early 20s. But the facility closed. They said he was stable. They released him." The room felt like it was spinning. "You hid him here? In our house?" She didn't answer right away. She looked at her hands. "We didn't know what else to do. He has no one. He's not dangerous, just confused, sensitive to noise, light. He couldn't be around people." I backed away from her. "So you brought him here, locked him in a windowless room, and lied to me?" She looked up then, and this time, her voice sharpened. "We didn't lie. We protected him. Protected you. You think we wanted this? Do you think we wanted to be here, in your house, sneaking around like criminals?" I wanted to argue, to tell her this wasn't protection, it was imprisonment. But before I could speak, we heard the front door open. Her eyes widened. "You can't tell Diego." My heart dropped. "He doesn't know?" She shook her head. "He thinks we're storing family heirlooms. He never asks questions. He never has." I stepped around her, out into the hallway, my skin cold with shock. She didn't follow me. Down the hall, Diego's voice echoed. "Babe, I'm back." I tried to steady myself, but my legs were trembling. He came around the corner, smiling at first. Then his eyes flicked to the bolt cutters in my hand, the open storage room door behind me, and his smile vanished. What's going on? I stared at him, searching his face for any sign he did know, that this was some shared deception. But all I saw was confusion. Real, panicked confusion. His mother appeared behind me. She found out, she said simply. Diego looked from her to me. Found out what? I didn't speak. I just pointed to the room. He stepped inside, slowly, cautiously. After a minute, he came back out, pale. There's a bed in there, he said, stunned. A room. She told me it's her brother, I said. That he's been living in our house, that he's unstable. He looked at his mother. Is that true? She nodded. I didn't want to involve you. I didn't want you to worry. You let a man we don't know, a man with mental health issues, live in our walls? He's family, she snapped, and he has no one else. The silence that followed was thick and brittle. Something had cracked between all of us, and I knew it wouldn't be fixed with an apology. And then, just when I thought the worst was over, I heard something, a soft cough, from the end of the hallway. We all turned. There, just visible in the dim light, stood a figure, thin, pale, eyes too wide like he hadn't seen daylight in years. He stared at us, not blinking, not speaking. And then he smiled. He didn't speak, just stood there, barefoot and motionless, at the edge of the hallway. His clothes were wrinkled, a size too large, and hung off his frame like they'd been forgotten on him. His smile wasn't warm. It was hollow, stretched too wide, too long. A smile worn like a mask. Diego took an unconscious step back. His mother rushed forward. It's okay, she whispered. Go back to your room, please. The man didn't move. He kept staring at me. I said go back, she repeated louder now. Her voice shook, just a little. Still nothing. Then softly, his voice broke the silence. I liked it better in the dark. I felt every hair on my arms stand up. Diego stepped between us. What the hell is going on, Mom? Why is he out now? I don't know, she whispered. He's not supposed to leave the room without me. I couldn't listen anymore. I turned and walked into the living room, grabbing my phone off the charger. My hands were shaking, but I found the number quickly. Who are you calling? Diego asked, following me. The police, I said. This has gone too far. His face twisted. Wait, no, don't do that. Let's just figure this out. He hasn't hurt anyone. Yet. I turned to him, my voice shaking now with anger instead of fear. You let your parents lock a man inside our house. You let them lie to me, control me, take over our space like it was theirs, and you stood by. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. I tried to be patient. I tried to understand. But this is the line, and it's been crossed. Before he could argue again, a sudden crash echoed down the hallway. A sharp, splintering sound, like wood snapping. We rushed toward it. The crawlspace door had been torn open. The mattress overturned, the boxes nearby scattered. He was gone. Diego's mother was pale as a sheet, frozen in place. He doesn't do this, she said quietly. He never leaves. He's not like this. I didn't wait. I dialed, reported the situation in clear, calm words I didn't know I had in me. The dispatcher stayed on the line until officers arrived. They searched the house, the backyard, the nearby streets. Nothing. He'd vanished. When they asked us questions, his mother tried to take control of the conversation, deflecting, minimizing. But I told the truth. All of it. The locked room, the documents, the secrecy. They took statements, promised follow-up, and they left. The house was quiet again, but not in the peaceful way. The silence this time was heavy, judging, final. I looked at Diego. They can't stay. None of you can. This isn't a home anymore. It's a hiding place for lies. He didn't fight me. The next morning, they packed. There were no arguments, no dramatic farewells. His mother didn't look me in the eye. His father never spoke a word. Diego left with them, said he needed time to process. I didn't stop him. For the first time in a month, the house felt still. Empty, but mine again. I changed the locks. I had the storage room cleared, everything inside turned over to the authorities. I didn't want to keep a single box. Weeks passed. They never found him. Sometimes, I think I hear creaking late at night, or a soft thump from behind a wall. I tell myself it's the house settling, that it's over. But then I remember his eyes, that smile, and the words he said, "I liked it better in the dark." And I wonder, did he ever really leave?